Should I do Mista as like a group? Mista? Mista! Yes, as a way to induce fear. You want to embarrass them, but with your brain. So I was like, I was looking for the gray pen because I wanted to do a polar of color, but I couldn't find it. So I was like, what if I call out to it? No, but they're like, I'm like, what's that? What's that? Just you.
Hey guys, welcome to the channel. It's been a pretty busy month and I need to finish this really quickly. So let's get into it. This month's theme is Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. I don't know what's on brand or off brand for me anymore because I already did a Fire Emblem 3 Houses spread thing for January. For those of you who don't know, Jojo is a very memeable anime. It's super crazy and absurd. It's just an overall fun time. I'm making this in May because it was actually when I first started watching the show. 2 years ago. I had no idea what it was. I just went off people recommending me to watch it. So why not have it in the month when I first started, because it's one of the few that I actually remember watching at a certain time. Most of the time, it's just kind of like, yeah, I did watch that, I don't remember when though. Also, part 6 is on the way and I'm super looking forward to it. The news got released somewhere in early April, so the timing just lined up. For the cover, I knew I wanted to do something along the lines of like a comic book, manga panel, geometric lines thing. I knew that I wouldn't be able to draw people, so I decided to have it all printed. I wanted all the printing to be on the front page so that I wouldn't accidentally rip some parts when turning pages. I actually made a full color mock-up in Illustrator to prepare for the sections I needed to make for the cover. An example you're gonna see on screen now. I prepped the document to print out everything I needed printed, then I went to print my photos. It all ended up pink. The more I tried changing up the paper settings, the printing settings, the more pink it got. At this point, I started printing it on the same paper when it would mess up and just flip it around just to save on paper. I didn't really have time to get the printer to clean itself, so I just dealt with the situation. It was now just gonna be a very magenta color scheme, so I printed some of the backdrops in black and white just so it doesn't look too overwhelming. And some of them were already black and white in the first place, so that really worked out. I already knew where all the photos were going, but I couldn't really transfer the design exactly because the sizes when you print things from Illustrator to your Word document thing and then you print it, I could honestly print the entire page as one photo, but I decided to print it as separate portions so I can stick them on top of each other. I just had to retrim and readjust the lines whenever I felt the need. Some photos already came with backdrops, a lot did not. It took a bit of work to cut the characters out, especially those with small parts sticking out. So like hair or scarves or other accessories. This spread is basically the improved version of the spread I made for Fire Emblem. It's another display of my favorite characters, but then I find this one so much more cohesive. Probably because it's a 2-page spread and then it's like kind of one color. But even if it was like the 2-page spread I was planning with all the crazy colors, I think it would still look a lot more cohesive than symbol on one side, completely unrelated thing on the other side. The entire thing is just a collection of printed parts, so I had to stick the backdrops first. The white pattern is for Bruno in part 5. The checkered with the purple is for Will Antonio Zeppeli, the Zeppeli of part 1. Then of course, I have after that is the pattern inspired by Dio's part 3 outfit. In the colored photo, the hearts are green, the lines are yellow, and the background is black. Just using my double-sided tape to stick that on. The last character section on this page is for Rohan Kishibe from part 4, who is my favorite stand of all time, Heaven's Door. I go back and continue the pattern on top. I glue that on super quick and I just keep it there for now because I have another pattern to use. On the other side, I added a photo of Kakuich from part 3. Good thing his photo already had a background because trimming around his hair would be really hard. Then I actually added the photo of Bruno. I was worried that since his suit and background were the same, he just looked like a floating head. Good thing that the slight pink color of the characters helped set them apart. For the next box, I'm taking the pattern found in part 4's Yoshikage Kira's tie, then using that as a backdrop for another character in part 4, Yukiko Yamagishi, whose stand allows her to control her hair. I just find it cool as a girl who has long hair. I wanted to finish the backdrops first before adding anything else, so I started on the plain patterns with no characters on them. The first one is full of math symbols, which is for Trish Una from part 5. Then on the corner, it's another pattern from part 5, which is Giorno's Ladybugs. I got those because part 5 has the best branding / pattern specific to each character compared to the other parts, which are more like color based. I needed to trim Dio to fit the box. I didn't have a part 1 character, so I just put Dio there because he's more interesting than Jonathan, and just had to line up his hand so that it looks accurate to the meme. My last character is Caesar Zeppeli from part 2. So the backdrop is from part 1, but the character is from part 2, because I think they're related. Not I think, they are related. I just kind of forgot at this point. The photo has so many small sticking out parts, I just went with the glue stick instead of my normal double-sided tape. To make the month label, I cut out some letters that I printed and arranged them onto the empty box. Instead of cutting out the letter from a bigger box to make a stencil, I just cut the letters out so I could rearrange them to fit in the super small space. Once I had that in pencil, it was super easy to fill it in with purple and add an outline. I thought that the page looked kinda unpolished and that something was missing. This was when I got out my metallic washi tape. I cut them in half to keep them not so overwhelming and used that to add lines to the page to help hide my uneven edges. It also adds that manga panels aesthetic I was going for. A few days later, I started work on the monthly. I started with making the lines for the calendar. I had to move up the 31st up to the first week so it just had some space. I just drew it in with a black pen to keep it as neutral as possible because of all the colors I'm planning to use. To tie this in with the concept of Jojo having different parts and different protagonists, the tapes I use for the week labels are all different. Since there are 7 completed Jojo parts in the manga, I just used the background colors I found in Illustration to make sure they all coordinate well. The purple for Jonathan, green for part 2 Joseph, a light blue for Jotaro because I didn't want to have a black, a golden yellow for Josuke, orangey red for Giorno, dark blue for Jolene, and a magenta pink for Johnny. The month label was another printed piece because I really wanted to be as accurate as possible. I just cut out the letters with my cutter so I could use it as a letter stencil. Jojo is such a colorful anime with a lot of cool colors and pattern mixing. Just search for screenshots from part 2's openings, for part 4, even for part 3 actually. I knew that I wanted to make something Jojo inspired but not have printed characters stuck everywhere. I wanted to keep the monthly relatively clean looking versus having so many parts that stick up. So I knew I wanted something fun and colorful. I tried to make the gradient purple to magenta for the month label. Not sure if it really worked, but I think I saved it with the thick black outline. I had some extra space on the bottom, so last minute I tried making the menacing symbols. Since the gradient didn't work so well, I just used the same colors for each symbol separately. Going back to the design, I wanted it fun and colorful, so why not use my giant collection of washi tapes? This was when I had a pretty fun time. I would pick out cool patterns and colors that I liked and see where they would fit. I would try to vary the design by using different widths. I'd even cut some in half to make sure they look like they're overlapping without having to do that and getting muddy colors. I used my cutter, especially around the month label. I'd even take a scrap of metallic tape I cut for the cover page to add to the monthly. To bring in more Jojo references, I sketched it in S shape so I could use paint later on and make it look like one of those zippers made by sticky fingers. The next day, I did get to paint that line. I just traced it out with the paint, then made horizontal lines going all the way up to make it look like a zipper. I needed to make the day labels, so I just used my brighter pens to write them, but I made sure they matched the washi tape for the day. While I was at it, I also decided to make the key on the side, which is something you guys don't usually see. I find that having the key on the side just gives so much life to a spread rather than seeing just have like a 12-section blank area. Moving on to the weeklies, I wanted to bring that fun lines, patterns, color thingy into the design since there are 5 weeks I have to make if I want to include the 31st. I actually can make one page for every part currently animated, so week 1 is part 1, which I could say is the least interesting part out of all of them. This is when you're trying to get your friend to watch Jojo and you have to tell them to keep watching it because it gets better. This is just a very blue and purple spread. If you've seen my other plan with me, this is basically the same format for my time schedules but just a different design every time. So there's the top calendar box, the TV show sidebar, and the separation for the notes section. I tried to keep a lot of the tones on the cooler side of the color wheel. I did add a bit of yellow just for Dio and red for the vampire aspect of the story and the gray to bring in the stone mask. Some of them I labeled with a white pen over the washi and some of them I had to get a mix of that and a colored pen. Since it's just the same thing with different color schemes, I'll do my normal updates here. If you're curious as to why I picked the colors I did, check out the description where I'm just gonna put like a general guide of what it kinda means. So yeah, life updates. Just wanted to give a heads up that there's not gonna be a wallpaper for this video. I've been super busy and pretty much swamped with work, so I wasn't able to get the time to make one. So the life updates are here to explain why. The recording of this plan with me is actually super crammed compared to how I'd usually do it. I'm recording the footage you see now on the Friday before the video is supposed to be posted. And why is that? I'd say two things: election and class. Let's just start with ACADS because that's the mainstay. As usual, certain profs are posting their module slate. That means I have to reshuffle skeds to make sure that the hole they left in my schedule from not uploading is still filled by something else productive so I don't waste my time. But sometimes that's really hard to find when they keep dropping those do your own time projects with no deadline. You don't know if you're just gonna work on something else from another class or your no deadline work because you know you have other stuff with a due date, but once you finish all your things with a due date, you're just running out of energy to do your other deadlines that don't have a due date. So yeah, that's one of them at least. So for the election, I've mentioned before in certain videos that I have a school club called an org that I'm involved in. The week I was supposed to work on the plan with me, the announcement for org elections went up. People nominated me for a bunch of positions actually, and I was pretty surprised because I was never the type to be nominated. I'd usually be the one to nominate myself for anything because usually no one else would. So when the nomination form went up, I didn't even open it because 1, I didn't really want to nominate anyone, and 2, I wanted to see if someone would nominate me without my intervention. Turns out people did nominate me, so I thought it would be my best chance to run for a position because people have shown interest. We had one event where we could talk about our platforms, which is called the Meeting de Avance, or MDA as I call it now. We have 5 minutes to talk about who we are and our plans if elected. So of course, I was gonna have slides. I spent a week just listing stuff down that I might want to do in the council. Then I chose 5 of my best general plans and 5 of my best specific plans out of a pool of like 20 something each. I try to finish it a little bit at a time, giving myself 30 minutes every day to work on it. If I'm not that busy, I want to keep improving what I can, so even after a week's worth of work, I didn't even have half of my slides done because I kept changing things to improve them. This was all because I found out that I actually had competition. I'm the competitive type if you guys don't know. Just knowing that I had to run against someone brought the adrenaline like real strong. I wanted to make this as good as it could possibly get because now I didn't just have to present my best ideas during the MDA, I had to make sure that my ideas were better than my opponents. The MDA was already on Monday and I only finished my slides Sunday night after it took up all my night work session. Usually I start recording the plan with me 2 weeks before I'm supposed to release it so I'd have time to make the script, record the voiceover, and edit. Not this week. I have 2 days to write and record and edit this video. Right now I'm recording this voiceover on Saturday, so it's time to work. By the way, stay tuned next month for a more behind the scenes look on this video because I'll try a new thing and posting a no talk vlog style thingy just to experiment. Yeah, you'll see a bunch of how I recorded this, when I did it, and what I'm doing. Now let's get back to the spreads. This is the month where I want to show growth in terms of learning, how I want things laid out, my color combination, and just my general improvement in spread layouts compared to my January spread. So I did something kinda like the habit tracker from the month but less plain. During my sketching phase, I just put a bunch of references that I was gonna draw to add to the page. I didn't want to add too much so it wouldn't look too crowded and have too many colors. I started with coloring in the cherry and put the iconic line sound from Kakyuin in part 3. If you know, you know. Next is the peace sign from Josuke's pins from part 4. I thought this would look better than having a heart because I already referenced Crazy Diamond so heavily in the 4th week, so that's just colored in with yellow. On the bottom of the page, we have the pin on Jotaro's hat from part 3. I made it a more brown than a brownish gold color so it wouldn't look so similar to the peace sign. Had to be really careful because I didn't want to smudge the black pen with the marker. I move on to my proudest achievement in the spread, the menacing symbols. I just freehanded these designs from the reference photo and I'm so surprised they ended up pretty well for someone who doesn't draw that well. For the header, I did the same technique as the one from the month label. Just needed to cut out the letters and trace them on for full accuracy. I left the B out first because I didn't want it to mess up the stencil because it was so close to the A. I did it after all the others were set. After a few were colored or had line work, I started assigning colors to the different boxes that matched to the drawings they were around. The one beside the cherry was bright red, the one with the peace sign was golden yellow, you get the point. I colored in the other characters with a green pen. In the first time it was on screen, as I remember, it was gold, but I didn't want to have another gold thing right beside the peace sign, so I colored it green after seeing someone color it green online. More drawing of the boxes because I have 12 habits I'm trying to track. Some of them are there to remind me to do them, and some are there so that I can just see how often I do them. And I don't really make a huge effort to completely fill them in. I added the black outline around the sounds because that's just a very Jojo thing for me. For the title, I colored it red to match the show logo. I colored in a green star with yellow trim to reference Stone Ocean a bit because that's the symbol adult Jotaro has on his clothes. Now time for something slightly experimental. I get my protractor and scribble on with a washable marker. Please don't use Sharpies. Then I take a little bit of water, then turn that into a kinda watercolor. So I use that technique to color in the bubbles on the bottom of the page. The water makes it spread, then I just outline each one with the original marker when it's painted. Afterwards, there's no damage or staining on the protractor, so it's fine. The next day, I add a black outline around the label too. A lot of erasing of pencil later, I add the labels of what each section is tracking. It looked kinda plain just having the drawings to tie in with the rest of the spreads, so I take scraps from the previous spreads and add them to this one. Scraps of washi, by the way. I think I forgot to refer to that. There's some that I picked out because they match the color of the drawings, but some I just added because the colors look good together. I tried to keep a good variety of patterns and colors. Using my trusty cutter, I trim around the boxes in the drawings. Like all the spreads this month, I wanted to look chaotic but still somehow nice looking, some edge trimming, and that's the habit tracker. For the sleep and exercise tracker, I didn't really have a character in mind, but I just had the color scheme of pink, blue, yellow, and green. So the labels are yellow, the box is pink, and the color key has the same color scheme. Wanted a super simple header for this one, so I just wrote it in all caps with a light blue marker. I have more of those bubbles on the page, so I get my protractor again to color them in. These are of course a reference to Caesar from part 2 who uses hamon to make bubbles. Because of a plot point, I was supposed to make the middle bubble red. If you know, you know. But it clashed a bit too much with the rest of the bubbles, so I just made the outline a really dark pink. Of course, I also had to bring in the washi tapes for this one. I tried sticking to the color scheme as much as possible, but then I remembered the peach jagged grid tape I wanted to use, so that became my wide tape of the spread. Then to offset that color, I added a light blue grid and a light pink solid. I just like the muted green and yellow on the top part too. To make it look cohesive, I also add the tapes to the top part of the other side. I didn't want to put them on top of the bubbles because those are more fragile paper now and I didn't want anything to rip. Super simple combo of green, blue, and yellow. But since there are purple bubbles, there's a purple grid washi on top there too. So yeah, here are my spreads for May. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and even if I didn't include a wallpaper this month, I'll show you guys that one next month if I still have time to make one. Jojo was my reintroduction into anime, and it's been pretty fun to make the spreads despite the super hectic schedule. What do you think about the spreads? Any suggestions for monthly themes? Leave them in the comments below. If you found this video interesting, hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos from me, then hit the subscribe button and the bell to know when a new video is out. I try to upload every week, Monday nights at 8. I guess that's all for this video. Bye guys!